on this episode of the WildFed podcast.
The best restaurants in the world, they all tell you the same thing. Wild caught food is so much better to work with, and the flavor profiles are 10 times better.
Somebody will say to you like, well, elephants are so emotionally intelligent, that makes it wrong. And it's like, yeah, but it's okay to eat bacon every day because pigs are incredibly emotionally intelligent animals.
When you go to a different culture, you very quickly realize that what we think is taboo is actually normal for them.
Obviously, this stuff is at the emotional and not intellectual level sometimes. People respond before they think.
We're so hell-bent on all the gear that comes with it, and that's part of the fun for a lot of guys. The reality of it is, man, people have been hunting in cloth and with a spear in their hand, and that's it.
And hunting better than most of us ever would dream of hunting today.
We got to hold the stereotypes at the door, man. I invite everyone to go out and do it.
Episode 99 of the WildFed podcast, Man Eats Wild, with Mario Kalpou, is brought to you by Surthrival. When I started Surthrival back in 2008, my goal was to create a supplement line devoted to the world I believed was coming. One where immune systems would be challenged, hormone levels would be suppressed, and our ability to adapt would be limited by the chemical and electromagnetic pollution that was becoming a constant. And I believed that nature held the answers. One of the first product lines I developed was our medicinal mushroom dual extracts. Medicinal mushrooms like reishi and chaga have both been shown in scientific studies again and again to be powerful adaptogens and immune system modulators. They help your body adapt to the challenging new health landscape, and they fortify your immune system against new and existing threats. In fact, their beta-glucans, those are complex, non-sweet, non-glycemic sugar molecules, make your immune system more intelligent, improving your white blood cells' ability to clean up unwanted biological intruders and your body's own wayward cells. Surthrival's chaga is made from wild chaga mushrooms, and Surthrival's reishi is made with organic wood-grown fruit bodies. Both are extracted in alcohol and hot water for a full-spectrum product like no other. Right now, and all through September at surthrival.com, our reishi and chaga mushroom dual extracts are 20% off with the coupon code ADAPTNOW. Head over to surthrival.com and use the coupon code ADAPTNOW for 20% off all mushroom products at surthrival.com. I get to travel a lot, and when I tell people that I'm from Maine, they always tell me how much they love Maine lobsters. I always tell them about MaineLobsterNow.com. Nothing's healthier than fresh seafood that came right off the dock. Now you can bring fresh, natural seafood home no matter where you live with MaineLobsterNow.com. Maine Lobster Now ships fresh, live lobsters. I repeat, these are still living lobsters. Overnight, right to your door anywhere in the country, and they come with excellent and simple cooking instructions. They've also got fresh lobster tails, full lobster roll kits, colossal Alaskan king crab legs, which I ordered some of, and they're incredible, scallops, mussels, and a wide assortment of fresh fish. Use the coupon code WildFedLobster for $10 off your first order at MaineLobsterNow.com. Demand more from your seafood and experience Maine lobsters delivered right to your door with MaineLobsterNow.com. I'm Daniel Vitalis, and you're listening to the WildFed podcast, a show about reconnecting with nature through hunting, fishing, foraging, and food. WildFed. Food is all around you. Mario Kalpou is the host of Man Eats Wild, a new show premiering on Outdoor Channel later this month. Mario's lifestyle is larger than life. He's a self-professed adrenaline addict who seeks thrills and big adventure, but he's also a very thoughtful hunter, and his ethics, like mine, center around his approach to food. A native of Australia, he made the first season of his show in the South Pacific, filming in Oz, but also in New Zealand. As you're listening to this, he's headed off to Africa, where he formerly worked as a hunting guide, what they call there a professional hunter, to film the second season of his new show. Man Eats Wild, like WildFed, airs on Mondays on the Outdoor Channel as part of their Taste of the Wild block, as both of our shows are food-focused. While our artistic styles are a bit different, we both view hunting, fishing, and foraging through a similar lens. We think it's an ancient but still relevant and important approach to acquiring quality food, and that food is healthier for us than anything we can purchase in the store. This was a great conversation, and I'm excited to have him as a friend and ally. And I'm wishing Man Eats Wild huge success with its upcoming premiere.
Mario Kalpou, welcome to the show.
Hey, Daniel, man, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm super excited.
Man, I'm super excited for your new show premiering here in the next couple weeks. Man Eats Wild on the Outdoor Channel, man. Tell us about it.
Yeah, man. Well, it's been a long time coming. It's been like 5 or 6 years of working on this project, and
Oh, wow.
it's definitely a labor of love for me. Yeah, it's sort of just happened over the years. I suppose, I've sort of brought both my passions together. One is hunting, fishing, and harvesting food from the wild, and cooking. So it's a mix of those two things that I've sort of gathered through the years, and it's been fun, man. I got to tell you, I really am feeling so blessed to be in this space at the moment because I mean, hunting and fishing and gathering and cooking for a living is really not work at all, is it? Really, it's just like a dream come true. So
It is like kind of one of the most fulfilling things. I look at all the different pursuits people have, like hobbies, and I think about how they go out and do whatever their recreation is and they come back without anything most of the time. You and
yeah,
I go out, we do all the same kind of recreation. We get out on the landscape, we come home with the biggest prize imaginable, really high quality food. So is your
absolutely.
is your show has it aired anywhere before, or is this going to be the official premiere?
No, this is the official premiere. Yeah, so
Cool.
20th
Okay.
September, 7:30 on the Outdoor Channel. Just giving a little plug there. But
Yeah, of course, please do.
yeah, no, this is our first premiere. I'm just about to go film my second season in Africa, so I'll be gone for 2 months. I'm actually leaving tomorrow, so that's super exciting. But yeah, there's some. You know what? It's so hard to. I got to say, man, the first season was so kick ass, just like the way that things went down. And, it's just some of it's just luck, like these amazing, crazy things happen, as we were filming, which, you could do it 1,000 times over and never have that stuff happen. But I'm kind of in a position now, I'm like, how do we beat that? Like, I don't know how, like, we got so lucky with some of these, cool events that happen along the way. But, you know what it's like, Daniel. If you just get out there as much as you can, you witness some cool things out in nature, and hopefully we can get some more of that on camera for this next season.
I'm filming my second season right now as well, and sometimes I'll be talking to somebody in a location we're going to, and they'll be worried they don't have enough planned, and I'm always saying, hey, most of what happens is just like the magic in the moment that you can't plan. So let's just get everything organized as best we can and then throw the dice. And when we get there, I just have to have faith that it's going to come together, and it always
Absolutely.
does in some way. And I know what you mean about working several years before we got our first season out. There was quite a few years when I'm looking back that we actually put in
Mm.
beforehand, but what an incredible experience it's been. And tell us about the tone of your show, because when I watch your trailer, it looks like high energy, it looks like adventure, it looks a little bit like some extreme kind of stuff that you're doing. So how do tell us about the tone of it, and tell us kind of how you became this sort of adventure character that you're playing in the show.
Yeah, man. You hit the nail on the head with the extreme part because I try to do things outside of the box. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and I like to put myself in some situations that probably aren't the smartest, but they're exciting and they're great to watch. So that's the premise of the show as far as excitement. And the messaging behind it is really very similar to your show. It's about reconnecting people to their food, man. I think a lot of people these days, especially in the big cities, they've really lost touch. They don't know where their food comes from, and a lot of people don't really care. So I think if we can educate people and start getting people to think about and care about, more importantly, where their food comes from, that's really the main goal that I have with Man Eats Wild. I believe we're eating a lot of junk at the moment that's causing a lot of people disease, and we're all getting sick from the stuff that we're eating. So, going back to that organic lifestyle, going back to harvesting yourself, and really just appreciating nature for what it is, because it's amazing. Like, you don't need all these things that are put in front of us in life, like, the cars and the technology and the clothes. That's all great, but you can find so much happiness out in the wilderness, and it's just really rewarding, once you do harvest your own food, and not to mention the flavors and how good the food tastes. So it's all that stuff. And as far as how I got to this point, I suppose as a kid, I grew up on a farm. My father was a pig farmer, and we had orchards and stuff like that. And we kind of, it was ingrained in me as a young kid. So, that was always there. And then I had restaurants for a long time, worked alongside celebrity chefs. So it's really an amalgamation of those two loves that I've had for my, the duration of my life. And yeah, that's how Man Eats Wild as a brand was built. And I suppose as far as the adventure stuff, it's just what I enjoy.
Oh, well, I'm curious about, so you grew up on this farm raising hogs and having orchards. Now that strikes me, this is an agricultural approach. So you're raising livestock, planting trees and pruning trees. And then, you work in the restaurant industry, and, food comes often from, sometimes from local places, but, comes from the agricultural world. So where did a passion develop in you for wild foods? Because you and I are both in this position where we have this passion for wild foods, but obviously we can both go down to the store, buy our own food, go to the restaurant, get our own food. We don't have to do this, but we choose to. So like, what ignited that passion for you, and where did it first emerge?
I suppose what I had a bit of a moment when I was, I had really quite a successful, famous restaurant in Australia, and we would order all sorts of game meats, or maybe more farmed meats actually, and produce and stuff. And then I would go out on my adventures and see what the organic stuff is like, out in the wilderness, and even the local farmers. And I just noticed that there was such a big difference, and there was a disconnect there. I'm like, why does this stuff taste so good in the wild? Why is it just a different flavor profile and a different color and texture and all that compared to this stuff that I'm buying in the restaurant? You know what I mean? Like, it was a really defined and moment that I had, and I was like, there's something going on here, man. Like, this isn't the same. So, that's when I really started doing a lot of research into how animals are bred in mass production and farming on big levels, and the same with produce. And I started really understanding what was going on. I'm antibiotics, growth hormones, all these nasty drugs, pesticides, all this stuff that, there's a lot of people on the earth now, man. So we have to produce quickly to feed everyone. And with that comes the loss of quality and nutrition. So that's really what it is. You know what I mean? We're fabricating food now. And that's what's making people sick. We've all got diabetes and obesity and all that because of the crap that we're eating. So, I feel like there was a duty of mine to tell people about this and just re-educate people. And if a few people listen and get it, I think it's a good thing. We're saving lives, essentially. We're keeping people healthy and happy, getting people outdoors. So the messaging is amazing. But, yeah, I really noticed it in the restaurant game. If you speak to any celebrity chef or any chef for that matter, they all tell you the same thing. Wild caught food or line caught fish and all that kind of stuff is so much better for you, so much better to work with as a chef, and the flavor profiles are 10 times better. Like, the best restaurants in the world, and I mean literally the best restaurants in the world, when you sit down and you read their menus, it always says sustainably caught, line caught fish or wild blah, blah, blah. Like, they know, you know what I mean?
Hand-foraged mushrooms,
you know what I mean?
Hand-foraged leeks,
Exactly.
ramps, all that kind of stuff.
So we're onto the right path. And I mean, I suppose, you know this yourself, like, it's really, the problem is it's really difficult for people in the city to be able to, go out and shoot an animal with their bow or rifle and harvest their food. But in saying that, there's a lot of cool organic markets, even in New York City or Los Angeles or wherever you are, there's organic farmers markets. It's available to people. And just, again, if you can be conscious of that, you're going to be ahead for sure.
Yeah, there's a few things there I'd like to pick at. One is I like what you were just saying about the restaurants. I bring that up a lot to people because I notice there's this disconnect where the general public will look at people who hunt and fish and they think, oh, redneck, dumb, uneducated redneck,
Yeah.
who's doing harm. And
Hmm.
then they go to the finest restaurants where the elite eat, where the wealthiest folks are eating, and the stuff on the menu is game and foraged ingredients. And as you brought up, and it's like they don't see the cognitive dissonance. On the one hand, they think the people who are doing this stuff are backwards, and then they think that the most progressive foods are the foods that those backwards people are harvesting. And
Exactly.
one thing that I see is changing right now is when I look at who's coming into hunting, at least, I'm speaking from a stateside perspective, and I'd love to get a more international perspective from you, but I'm seeing a changing of the guard because the desire for better, as you mentioned, the United States, at least, we went into this period of like a huge depression in our food culture to where
Mm.
everything was boxed, microwaved,
Yeah.
highly refined. And then that sort of led to the pendulum swinging the other way. And you get all these people who are interested in food. And as they follow that, like people like myself, we end up at going, hey, I'd like to go do this myself with my own hands and my own work. And so now you've got all these kind of more hipster folks coming into it instead of
Yeah.
the classic character that you would imagine. And
Yep.
a lot of people who didn't necessarily grow up with a father or an uncle or grandfather that took them hunting. Instead, now you're seeing people who didn't come through any hunting lineage. We're seeing a lot more women. We're seeing just a much more intersectional type community now coming to it. So it's
Yep.
really interesting because it's changing and the public perception hasn't caught up to see hunting as this really valuable thing again, like it used to, but I think it's going to. So curious your thoughts on that. And then also what you, because you hunt in Africa, you hunt in New Zealand, you hunt in Australia, you've hunted around the world. How is, is that how is what I've just characterized hold up around the world? Is it changing in other places? And how is it different? I know you're in LA right now.
Mm.
How is the US culture around hunting different from the other places that you go?
Yeah, man. You just nailed it. That's exactly what the perception is around the world, and it is a changing time. I think, and I'm going to go back to the preconception that you were talking about. With that redneck
Elmer
ideology, and
Fudd.
yeah, all of that. You know, hunting has had bad press, and just the media, obviously loves to run a bad story, and the shock factor is a huge thing for them. And when you had guys shooting lions in Africa, and the dentist, I can't remember what his name
Oh,
was.
right.
You had all
Cecil the
these.
lion.
Cecil the lion got shot and all that, and all of a sudden it just gave us a really bad name. All of a sudden, and to put everyone in that one basket is a bit unfair. It's like if a sports star does something horrendous, they don't say, "Oh, every football player in the world's a bad
Right.
person."
Right.
Like so it's like saying O.J. Simpson. Oh well, every it's just you don't do
Right.
that. So we seem
Right.
to have got a bad rap. But the reality of it is, as you know, is hunting is actually the way it should be. And the way the Western culture is what they've done with food is actually wrong. Unfortunately, it's about supply and demand now. But as far as trends are concerned, you're absolutely right. People are now starting to believe and realize that, hey, man, like, going out and getting your own food is actually natural. This is what we've been doing this for. This is not something we've been doing for 100, 200, 1,000 years. This is something we've been doing for 250,000 years.
Mm.
This is not. This is something that has kept us alive. So, I just think, you know, like you said, it's a changing of the guard now, and as long as you are doing it in a responsible manner, and it's ethically done, and you're doing it for the right reasons, it's an amazing way to live. So, yeah, there is a lot of hipster hunting going on now, and I'm cool with that because it doesn't matter what you don't have to live, you don't have to listen to country music and live in the middle of, the Midwest to be a hunter. I don't, people, I know guys that live in the city that go out on adventures once a weekend or once a month and appreciate getting their food. So I know I'm a massive advocate for getting people outside and to do this. And I don't care what walk of life you come from. We got to hold the stereotypes at the door, man, because, it's all about, for me, harvesting food and getting out there and living clean and, enjoying the world. So I invite everyone to go out and do it.
Man, I've got a friend, Fisher Neal out of New York City, who takes the subway sometimes to go hunting, and I was just reading an article in the National Wild Turkey Federation's most recent edition of their magazine, another story about a guy, and there he is with his dressed all in camo with his bow case and his turkey decoy, taking the subway to where he's going to go hunt. And I just think that kind of thing, I'm excited about that. And I'm excited about people who don't look like typical hunters. And I'm also, I kind of feel like when I go to the big hunting box stores, I see a lot of garbage in there, a lot of junk, and I'm excited to see things change and people demand better stuff and people, be less focused on what, deer urine lure they're going to use or cheaply manufactured, whatever trinket that they think is going to make them a better hunter. And I'm looking forward to seeing people go like, hey, this stuff has gotten, because I feel like the hunting culture had kind of gotten into like a stagnant, dying place. And now it's being vivified again. But again, I'm speaking of the US. What's it like in Africa? What's it like in Australia? Are things changing, or are they the way that they've been a long time?
Well, I'll go. You raised a really interesting point, man. Things have been the same in Australia and New Zealand for a long time. Africa, it's not even like, I hate to say it, but in America, we're so hell bent on all the gear that comes with it, and that's part of the fun for a lot of guys. Like, I've got to have this bit of camo, and I've got to wear this, and I've got to get this collar, and I've got to wear, have this tripod, and it's like all about the gear, and you got to buy all the stuff, and it's almost like
it's so expensive.
It's so expensive, but the reality of it, and some people are going to hate me for saying this, but the reality of it is, man, people have been hunting in cloth and with a spear in their hand, and that's it.
With a stone point,
You know what I mean? With like mud on their face and like just like that primal, way of hunting and
hunting better than most of us ever would dream of hunting today, with more ecological knowledge and awareness.
Absolutely. Like, you cannot even question that. I've seen guys in Africa shooting with stick bows that they made from a tree that would like demolish most hunters I know. I know guys that can track animals and tell you that particular animal right there is the one we've been tracking in a herd of like 50 animals. And I'm like, how the hell do you know that? He's like, well, it's a female, it's this, it's that. And these guys are like freaks, man. Like, seriously, an African bushman will track an animal and hunt better than, I think, 95% of the professional hunters that I know out there. So, it's become a commercialized, thing where, and I get it, it's fun. Like, it is fun going to the shop and buying all the different bits and pieces. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about practice and getting out there as much as you can. And, I try to stay away from a lot of the commercial stuff if I can. But obviously, the right tools make it a lot easier. I mean, I could never, I don't know how I would go with a spear in my hand in the middle of Africa.
Though the interesting thing about it is how, like somebody like that, let's say the San, where they're immersed in that environment all the time. And so they for them to recognize a track in that way, it's like maybe I might recognize a watch or a car, and I could be like, oh, well, that car was manufactured here in this year, and it's got this engine. And a Khoisan person might be like, how do you know that? And it's like, I don't know. I just know that from being around it. And similarly, what they know, it's like, it's because they're around it all the time. And what I noticed with the commercialization, and I think, and I own a company and, I manufacture products, so I understand this, but like, I think what ends up happening is that people don't spend time in that natural environment. So they go to the store and buy products because it makes them feel like they're still involved when they're not hunting. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm still doing something. I'm still, rather than maybe just taking a walk or going out scouting, we go like buy a new thing. And then, as you know too, from shooting firearms, from doing archery, gizmos don't make you better at that. It's like fundamentals, practice and good fundamentals make you better. And it is a shame that we get so caught up in those trappings, because I watch with shooters, constantly, like, I'll get this red dot, I'll add this whatever gizmo to my gun, and it's like, it's not making them better. It's actually making things more cumbersome and more awkward. But
Absolutely, man.
and
I
I don't mean to go too far down that road, but I do think sometimes we purchase things as a surrogate for the experiences we want to have. So I'd rather be out in the field, but instead I'll go buy this thing and it'll at least make me feel nostalgic or something.
Yeah, no, I totally hear, man. It's like there's so many aspects to hunting. Like, I'll give you an example, and it's true. Like, I have a friend of mine, and I won't mention his name because he'll kill me. But he's a really good. He's so good with the bow, like 80 yards. He's hitting like an apple kind of deal. Like, he's really much better shooter than me. I'll put my hand up right now. But he hardly ever goes out hunting, right? Because he's got kids and, he's busy, man. So the guy, I get it. He's got a lot going on. But man, the guy can shoot so good. Like, he could easily be a target shooter, a professional hunter, shooter. But he never goes out hunting, right? So he can shoot a bow really well, but because he's never out there, he's like, he'll go out every season during the rut in New Zealand, what they call the raw there. But he's been like 5 years in a row or 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row, unsuccessful. And he's like, dude, I don't get it. Like, I'm like, yeah, because, man, it's really, you practice with your bow a lot. You're really good at shooting. But if you can't get within 70 or 60 yards of that animal, it all means nothing, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas for me, I can't shoot as good as that guy. I mean, I'm nowhere near it, but I'm out there, stalking all the time and in the wilderness, and I understand wind movement, I understand cover and all that kind of stuff. So I can sort of get away with not being as a good shot as him with the bow. And it goes back to that practice thing that we're talking about, like these African tribes, like you said, man, they're ingrained in that environment, not once a week or once a month, but on the daily basis, man. Yeah. So they know
that landscape too. They're actually an animal on that landscape to a degree.
They're in the food chain. They're in the food chain. And the thing is, the subtleties and the details that they're looking at is something that we don't even see. Like, they're looking at intricacies that doesn't even come onto our radar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the way that, I don't know, just simple things like that grass has been folded to the right-hand side so that animal's gone down that way, or, the tracks are doing this and that, or whatever it is. But, I find that so amazing. And the more time I can spend with people like this all around the world, the more I feel like I'm growing as a hunter, as a gatherer. Like, everyone does it different as well, Daniel. Like, I'll be in New Zealand and the Maoris will show me their way, and then you go to Africa and they'll do it a totally different way, and you tell them that way and they're like, that's crazy. We don't do it that way. I've never seen that before. And it's like, there's no right or wrong. I suppose it's just about how you've been brought up and the landscape that you've been used to being immersed in. That really shapes the way you sort of, are taught.
Man, there's again, I want to bring it back to kind of what I was saying a moment ago, where it's like, the average urbanite moving through their environment, if they brought like that Maori person with them, there's so many things that they would like, what someone's earring might signify, or what their ring might signify, or you would notice, hey, that person's wearing a very nice suit and that person's wearing a cheap suit, and the Maori person might, or the Khoisan person might not see that. They just look like two suits, but you see, oh, that one's an Armani and that one's off the shelf. Like those subtle things, like, but then we go out in the natural environment and we don't recognize that folded blade of grass. And I often make this kind of comment that, if you took the average backcountry hunter and that Khoisan person and an astronaut, and you lined up all three, the hunter the modern hunter looks more like the astronaut than the person from the landscape. You know what I mean? With the giant pack and the giant boots and all the gear,
Totally.
like start to look
Yeah.
like maybe a spaceship landed and let them out on the landscape. And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of us are trying to overcome is we go into the landscape like we are extraterrestrial visitors to it. And of course it makes hunting a big challenge when you're not part of that landscape. And so I think a big challenge for modern hunters is like, and that's kind of what we've been dancing around here. It's like less about the gear. It's more about, can you start to become part of the landscape, and how quickly can you transition from the frenetic tech mind of our urban life and built environment to the rhythms of the natural landscape. Like you were talking about the direction of the wind, like the sound under your feet, the foliage around you, how the animals are using that landscape, the water, the food sources. You know, because it can be hard when you're coming off of flights. And I mean, I imagine for you where it seems like you're doing a lot of international travel, and it must be pretty intense to go from, you know, your phone and the plane fluff, the flight, the airport and all that, and then suddenly be out on a new landscape.
For sure, man. It takes a few days to adjust, especially in a new place. And, you know, but that's actually what excites me. I mean, the most exciting thing I think for me personally is being thrown into a completely new scenario. I don't know what these animals are. I don't know what the dangers are. I don't know what the fauna is. I don't know which tree I can touch and which I can't. You know, like there's all these, like we were talking about details before. Like I know that, you know, it's just little things, like, you know, when you hunt in a certain area and you're like, oh, don't touch that little shrub because that really hurts. That's
right.
You know, that thing kills when you touch it. And you know that, like when you're immersed in hunting in that one specific landscape, you know all the intricacies of, you know, that stuff. But when you go and you've just landed in Namibia or like Botswana and you're in the middle of you've just started this, you know, adventure, you're like, holy crap, I have no idea what is going on here. And to me, that's cool because, like, it's like, all right, it's like I'm in first grade all over again. I've got to learn and I've got to adapt. And, you know, sure, you've got the skills behind you that you've got, which are the, you know, general hunting stuff and all the rest of it. But to me, that's so exciting because it's like, you know, it's a new challenge, and it's like, and you know, by the time you finish this mission, you're going to have a whole new arsenal of knowledge behind you. That to me is like the ultimate most exciting thing about, you know, traveling internationally and hunting in different locations, especially if you can be lucky enough to have a local or someone that has, you know, been in that environment for a long time.
Yeah, it seems to me, well, first, just to comment on what you just said, I mean, being like the ultimate adapter is kind of like a goal that I always have. Like I always say I'd rather be number 2 at everything than number 1 at any one thing. You know, like I want to be able to be thrown into, I want to be able to run, to climb, to swim, to jump, to flip, to, you know, I want to be able to shoot. I want to be able to move, and I want to be able to write, and I want to be able to read. I want to be able to kind of do everything. That gets me really excited. So I like to get thrown into a new environment as well. I noticed that fitness looks like it's a big part of what you do. And I was wondering your comments on that, because we're seeing now, I kind of have noticed a couple things in American hunting culture. I'm seeing a lot more fitness coming into it, being a part of the lifestyle. And then I see a huge resistance to that, where there's people, you know, there's a few key players in the U.S. hunting scene that are kind of hunting fitness moguls. And then you've got people who will really smack talk them because they don't want that to be part of the culture. And I kind of see both sides of that. But to me, the best hunters of that, you know, when I look at that 250,000 year lineage you were talking about, you know, these were fit people. They had to be. Today, it's very easy, especially if you live in a place, let's say the terrain is really flat, the animals come to you because of the ag, you can drive your four-wheeler or your pickup truck right to your stand, you know, you don't have to, a lot of the physicality is removed in certain types of hunting now. But for you in doing what you do, how important is the fitness component? And especially, I imagine, you know, when it comes to keeping up with those locals you were talking about. We'll get back to the show in a moment, but first, the WildFed podcast is proudly sponsored by Red Kill Mountain Homestead Farms. Red Kill Mountain in upstate New York is home to the state's largest wild apple savanna. This unique ecotone boasts thousands of seed-grown feral apple trees on a pristine, spring-water-fed mountainside overlooking the Delaware River Valley. Unlike the grafted, cloned apples you buy in the store, that's right, even organic apples are genetic clones. Red Kill Mountain apples are different. Just like nature and Johnny Appleseed intended, all the apples there are born from seed. This means that the apples you get from Red Kill are from unnamed varieties you never tasted before, and they've never been sprayed or even irrigated. These are truly organic, natural fruits. Red Kill Mountain hand selects apples and gently packs them in boxes to ship directly to your door. While these apples would make great hard cider or other apple products, Ashley and Matthew believe they are best enjoyed simply eaten. That's why they've created their Wild Apple Tasting Box and their Wild Apple Cleanse Kit. When you order, you'll receive carefully chosen apples from a variety of trees while they're in the peak of their ripeness. Go over to redkillmountain.com to check out their apples and other products too, like their limited run apple molasses, their bourbon barrel maple syrup, and more. The coupon code WildFed10 gets you 10% off the best, most natural apples you've ever tasted at redkillmountain.com. Now, back to the show.
I don't think there's a right and wrong with this, right? And it's really interesting because I agree with you. There are two sides to this. It depends what you want out of your adventures. If you're gonna, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I was a professional hunting guide for 10 years in New Zealand. Now, if you want to hunt deer, for example, you I would say you have to be at least moderately fit. I'm not saying you're going to be a gym rat that's, training and working out, 6 days a week, but you're going to have to climb a few hills, and you should be able to at least walk 5 miles, say, for example. You can go and shoot a deer with that kind of level of fitness. But if you want to shoot a Himalayan tahr on the mountaintops of New Zealand, yeah. I can tell you right now, unless you train for at least 6 months, if you have no fitness, you have no chance. Like, there is no way that you are going to climb these alpine mountains and safely be able to do a 4-day hunt and carry your animal out on your back. Like, that's impossible. You're going to really be in a lot of pain, and it's going to be dangerous. So I think it's a question of, what kind of harvesting or hunting do you want to do? And I'll go back to, say, bird shooting. Like, shooting ducks, man, you're sitting in a blind. I can be 85 years old and, have arthritis and be a duck hunter if I wanted to, So I suppose it's just, I don't think there's a right and a wrong, but for the things that I do, I certainly need to have a level of fitness, man, because it's A, going to be dangerous if I don't, and B, why would I want to do it and suffer? I want to do it and enjoy it, So if I'm like fit, I'm enjoying the hunt, and I'm really thriving. If I'm like, if I was a smoker and I, drank soda all day and was fat, for example, like, it's going to be a punish. I'm going to hate doing it. It's going to be so, like, annoying and dangerous. So I take my hat off to guys like Cameron Haynes, for example, who runs,
what a machine, huh?
He's a machine. It's excessive. Like, you don't need to be that fit to hunt, but he loves doing it. Yeah. And you
have to run 100 miles a day.
Yeah, you don't. Come on, man. Like, come on, Cameron. That's like, he does it because he loves it and he's a beast. And I get that. I really enjoy his style, and for me, it's like on par of, I feel like I'm that kind of guy. I'm not saying I'm a Cameron Haynes kind of, he runs a lot,
but I put you more in, but you're on that side of the house.
I'm definitely on that side. Like, I train every day, man. I'm in the gym every day, sometimes twice a day. I'm fit, man. I certainly don't run marathons every day, but I need to be strong. I feel like for me, with the fitness side of things, like, especially with carryouts. And also, you got to remember, like, when you're a guide, and I guided for 10 years, I get clients, Daniel, that are like in their mid-60s, they're overweight, they smoke cigars, and they're business guys that don't hunt that much. They might hunt like 3 times a year. So, I need to be able to carry their deer out. I need to be able to carry the backpack.
Their rifle in, their deer out.
Yeah, I'm basically a Sherpa, man. So it's like I need to be able to get them onto the deer because they're not doing it every day. So they want to have that experience, but they don't want to do a lot of the work a lot of the time, which is fair enough. Like I get it, but for me, it's like it's more about the heavy carryouts and the endurance side of things. And I suppose that's kind of why I, got more into the training is to deal with that. And then it just kind of stuck with me.
I'm curious what you like to do. I love to train too, and I do quite a variety of things. But lately I've been, I do a couple mile walk every day, and lately I've been carrying a kettlebell with me, and it's made my hunting season a lot easier. I got to say that's been fantastic training for me. But yeah, what's your kind of mix like? What kind of fitness stuff are you into?
I love boxing, man. I'm huge.
Oh, cool. No kidding.
Man. Yeah. I've been boxing since I was about 14 years old. And I had a few fights through the years just to test myself. But I love that cardio, high intensity. I'm all about
that, like,
high
anaerobic thing, right? Like short bursts of super intense activity.
Absolutely, yeah. Which probably doesn't help my hunting so much. I mean, you want to be more of an endurance-based guy when you're hunting because the reality is, when you're hunting, everything's slow. It's slow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's long and slow. It's long distances. You're never really running. I mean, if you're running during a hunt, you've probably done something wrong. But there's moments where, yeah, sure, you want to cut the distance quickly and, you make a bolt for it. But for the most part, it's long stuff. I box because I love it. I do a lot of HIIT training. So, high intensity interval training. I'm really lucky. I'm going to give this guy a plug, but I train with a guy named Justin Fortune. You got to check him out. He's Manny Pacquiao's head trainer. I've been working with him for a while now, doing strength and endurance. But
you do that in person, or you do that sort of remotely with him?
No, I train with him in person.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So, yeah, he's cool. But yeah, I enjoy it. Like I know, brands like Under Armour are really pushing that hunt, train, sort of run and shoot space. And yeah, I don't know. You're right. There's two different worlds there, man. Like it really is a different, almost subculture within the culture.
Right.
And there's so many of those subcultures in hunting. Like it's crazy how many ways you can go about being a hunter. Like there's so many variations. Like, you can be a bird hunter, just shoot birds. That's it. That's all you're interested in, shooting
specialized.
Waterfowl. Yeah. Specialized. Or you can be a bow hunter. That's all you care about is archery and bow, and you get obsessed with every little part of that. Then there's like guys, that want to be, big game hunters, or, people that just shoot elk.
The Spiros, like you got this whole underwater hunting community that's gotten so huge now too, spearfishing.
Absolutely. Those guys are insane, man.
Yeah.
I think that's actually one of the hardest forms.
Oh, yeah. What an incredible discipline. I mean, talk about leaving your natural environment and entering into the animal's environment,
Yeah, man, to be honest, some of those, like out of all the scenarios I've put myself in through the years, that has been the most scary shit I've ever done in my life. Like, yeah, man. I've been put in situations where, like, I almost died spearfishing in Vanuatu a few years ago.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, man. I shot a dogtooth tuna, and my line got caught around my legs.
Oh, wow.
I didn't let go of the gun in time, and this thing, I foul hit this dogtooth tuna. It was massive, and it just started circling me. But obviously, the line was attached to the gun still, and it wrapped around my legs. And then
did you have a knife with you?
Yeah, I had a knife, but it was tangled in the ropes because it was on my ankle.
Oh, that's something you didn't foresee happening. Wow.
No, man. Like that's actually what got caught up. It got caught up around my knife. So, yeah, and then the fish dove, went down.
Oh no.
Dude, it was seriously, it was a moment where I was like, okay, this is not good, man. This might be the end of me. But just by chance, I don't know how, but it came free, and I was like,
wow,
really quite deep at that point. And I got to the surface, and I was like, man, I'd swallowed a bit of water, but yeah, I take my hat off to Spiros, man. they are skilled hunters of the ocean.
Yeah, I love that idea of hunting beneath sea level. I just think it's really, really cool. But like you said, there's all these subcultures, and I think you're, a good point you're making is some of these subcultures, their style does require that fitness, and some does not, and it's kind of cool. There's a flavor for everybody. What I notice when I look at one of the common themes, because your style of hunting and fishing looks like you get into a lot of variety. It's not like you're not a specialist. You're kind of a generalist, but then it seems like you specialize in really big, big stuff, big animals, So, and that's true of your fishing as well. So one thing I want to ask you about is sort of like what you like going after. And assuming that we're talking only about things that are legal and ethical, is there anything like off your radar or really on your radar that you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right, man. I love to, and it goes back to learning. Like, I love to be able to, I want to know how to do every form of harvesting. And like, I love shooting birds. I love being in the water. I love it all. Which it kind of takes away from being really, really, really good at one thing. Like, if I had my bow and I was just shooting my bow, I know that I would be a better bow hunter.
Right.
I try to mix it up. Like, I try to allocate a day of the week that I do each thing. So I'll be like, all right, Monday, Friday, I'm going to shoot 100 arrows with my bow. On Wednesday, I'm going to go to the range and shoot the rifle. And then I might, do some reading on a particular animal on Tuesday or whatever. So that's the way I try to, mix up what I do. As far as bucket list things or things that there's so many, Daniel, that I couldn't even, man, I know I will never in my whole lifetime tick off boxes of
Right.
animals and places that I want to go to and harvest. Like I look at guys like Jim Shockey, for example, who has literally almost hunted.
What a career.
Like, dude, that guy's been. How can you've got to dedicate your whole life to constantly traveling, constantly, which is fine. Like, I'm trying my best, and I'm still quite young, but even that guy, he still hasn't got things. There's still things that he hasn't.
Yeah.
You can't. It's impossible, right?
Well, Man Eats Wild just needs to go like 10 seasons. What year were you born?
84.
Oh no, you're just a kid.
Yeah, man, I'm young. I'm a young gun, so I'm trying to, Well, I don't feel young, but let's face it. There is a time where what I'm doing at the moment is not sustainable for up until my 60s. I can't. Maybe there's probably as far as the fitness stuff. So what I'm trying to do now is get all the crazy stuff out of the way now that I'm young and I can do it. Like, the high intensity hunts, the big game, the dangerous stuff, get that all out of the way now. And then I see myself in the future, maybe toning it down to doing things that are like maybe being just a bird hunter or, I could see that's probably the way that it's going to go later on. But
my retirement plan is like small mountain brook trout fishing and squirrel hunting with a 22. Those are like my long term. But yeah, as we're making these shows, it's like I really want to take advantage and get out there. Now I'm like a place I've never hunted, but where I'm finding myself most drawn and is toward the Arctic. And
cool.
And the cold, and some of the animals up there that I'm interested in hunting, people just get mad at me about, and
Yeah.
I'm curious about that part for you. So you're going to Africa. What are some of the animals that you have hunted that are like kind of notable that you'd want to mention? Like for instance, your Instagram, which is a pretty wild place. I recommend people get over there. That's at Man Eats Wild, I think, at Man Eats Wild TV.
Yeah.
I see you there with like Cape Buffalo. I see you there with this giant grouper, man. I think it's a bass grouper. I'm curious about some of these, like, what are some of the animals you've gone after? And then, what places and what animals are highest on your list for stuff you want to do next for your show?
Yeah. For me, it's about food, like yourself, so I kind of work backwards sometimes when I'm planning my missions. I think to myself, what dish do I want to create?
I want to cook.
And then
cool.
Yeah, and then I go back from there. So I don't go like, what animal do I want to shoot? I go, what amazing food do I want to create? And then I'll think about it and go, okay, I want to do a pappardelle pasta with a ragu. So then I go, right, what animal can I, think about or choose that's going to have, really fatty muscular meat that I can render down and slow cook and all that. And that's the way I normally plan things.
Yeah, I like that.
And I also think about cultures, like what cultures do I want to visit? Like I'll give you an example. I'm going to the Zambezi River and there's a crocodile. I've got a guy on the ground over there and he tells me that there's a crocodile that's been like, ripping people's arms and legs off at the river.
Wow.
And it's really problematic, you know what I mean? Like he's killing people. And there's a few in the area that are, just being nuisances. So for me, that makes sense. I'm like, I'm going there to solve a problem. I'm going there to help people in a village. I'm going to learn about their cultures, and then I'll, harvest the animal and probably, I might do something with the alligator tail or something like that. So, these interesting stories and, it's something with a bit more depth than just going out and
right.
shooting something,
trophy hunting, everything. Yeah, I gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like if there's some depth to the reason why I'm going there, that's what excites me, man. But going back to Africa, and you made a really interesting point, I'd like to talk about it, is the misconception of animals that can be or can't be hunted. That's what is accepted, right? Because there is a line in the sand that gets drawn about what is acceptable to shoot and what is not acceptable to shoot. And I find that a crazy concept because to me, it's almost like being racist. You know what I mean? Like you can't
speciest.
say, that life is, speciest. It's like that life is okay to take, but that life, no, you can't take that life. It'd be like saying, you can shoot that thing and, it's just crazy to me. It's like, wait a minute, if you're going to take the life of something for the purposes of eating it, why would you differentiate what's okay and what's not okay?
Well, sometimes they'll try to say, those same voices will say things like, because we're talking about Africa. So let's say that we were talking about an elephant, for instance, and obviously, there's a lot of politics on both sides of the argument about elephants. But I do like to point out that if you're of European descent, you definitely come from elephant hunters, but and probably of Native American descent as well. Or Asian, geez, I mean, much of the world outside of Africa was hunting mastodons, and
Absolutely.
then anybody in Africa was hunting elephants. So it's like we are pachyderm hunters at the core. So I say that first. But anyway, the point is somebody will say to you like, well, elephants are so emotionally intelligent. And they'll say this about whales too, so emotionally intelligent that makes it wrong. And it's like, yeah, but it's okay to eat bacon every day because pigs are incredibly emotionally intelligent animals. Yeah. And we seem to throw that out the window. Like pigs are an animal that you could take organs out of and put in your body.
Exactly. They're the closest to humans.
Right. So I find sometimes that the argument about an animal's intelligence or how its pack dynamics work don't hold up because people are not consistent about those ideas.
Yeah, and they don't understand enough about the cultures behind it as well. I find that's a really big one. In the Western world, we have movies, cartoons, characters, and once that comes out, it becomes like people refer to deer if you're not hunting as Bambi, this character that's on a cartoon. It's like, wait, what are you guys? If that cartoon
that film was made specifically, there were at least in part to change perceptions about hunting and make hunting look like something that was unethical. I mean, that was part of Disney's intention with that film. And so it was propaganda against hunting, at a different time in the hunting world, but it was, and it worked.
Yeah. No, it definitely worked, and the Lion King done it and the whole bunch of
right.
things did it. So what I was going to say with that is, when you go to a different culture, like Africa, for example, you very quickly realize that what we think is taboo is actually normal for them. And I'll give you an example. If you shot a zebra and you put it on your Instagram account or, whatever, 95% of Westerners, especially those that don't hunt, would look at that photo in disgust, right? They'd be like, oh my God, that's disgusting. How could you shoot a zebra? Blah, 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 blah. And then, but like if you did that with a pig, no one is going to blink an eyelid. It's like, oh yeah, just shot a hog, we're going to eat it. But when you go to Africa, there are so many zebras there that it's just like, you're never going to run out of that animal. And they're a valued source of protein by Africans. You know what I mean? Like they're the equivalent to our pig. So, but because we don't understand their culture and we only see it in context of just shooting something, we don't understand it. We look down on it. But I mean, for me, it's like when I went over there, I was like, wow, like what you guys, this is like your bread and butter protein. Like this is like, a staple diet for you guys. So there's a lot of animals there that we think are, taboo or they shouldn't be shot or eaten. But for the African people, they're like, well, what are you talking about? We eat this stuff every day. This is stuff that we consider to be like beef for you guys. So, I suppose my perspective is really simple. I think if the animal is declining in numbers, if the animal is not a valued source of protein or something considered to be like, a staple diet, then I'm probably not interested in hunting it. And if I can't utilize the animal 100% for the purposes of food, I'm not interested in hunting it. But if I can utilize it for food 100% and it's considered, in abundance and it's a sustainable hunt, man, I'm all about it. I don't really care. I don't make apologies to anyone for harvesting something for the purposes of food and utilizing it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it is so much cultural stuff. Is it New Zealand or Australia? And I know that folks out there hate when Americans confuse the two, but is it Australia where they have the problem with the feral house cats and you see these pictures of hunters? Yeah. And so that's like one of those things because, for people over here, they see a picture of a guy in camo with a rifle holding up what looks like a house cat, and it's like, it's shocking and overwhelming, but we forget over here how damaging cats can be to the ecology of a place, and that they're invasive. And so this cultural stuff gets lost sometimes. I don't know too, if you ever saw, there was a photo of James Cameron on the set of, I think the original Jurassic Park, but he's sitting there in front of what looks like one of the Triceratops they had in the film. So it looks like a dead Triceratops and there's a rifle there and he's doing what looks like a grip and grin with this Triceratops. And, obviously it's not real, but people freaked out on the internet. Like, why would he do that? Why would he kill this animal? And it's like, it's a dinosaur, people. Like, this is obviously not real, but how quick people are to judge these things. And he actually got pushback when this came out as if he had killed a Triceratops. So, obviously this stuff is at the emotional and not intellectual level. Sometimes people respond before they think,
Absolutely. And it's about being educated on the topic too. Like, if I've got vegetarian friends, right, that love what I do. Like, seriously, they're like, we don't eat meat. We don't, and I respect them and they respect me, but they go, if we were going to eat meat, we would do it the way you do it. We can understand that. But what they're probably against is the mass killing and the, treating animals. I mean, because let's face it, man, if what we're taking out for our own purposes of feeding ourselves, those animals have lived really happily in their natural environment. Mm-hmm. They've been able to breed, pass their genetics on. They've had a great life out in the wilderness. And then all of a sudden they get taken out really quickly and they're utilized, they're used properly. Whereas, a pig, just for example, sitting in a inside sort of slaughterhouse and being fed shitty food in a small environment, that's also, it's a form of torture. Like, it's like, if I said to you, all right, Daniel, you got 30 years on this world, man. You got two options. Like, you're gonna die in 30 years. Option A, I'm going to put you in a cage. I'm going to feed you really shit food. You're not going to be able to see another female. You're not going to be able to breed. You're not going to be able to hang out with your friends, and then you're going to die. Or you're going to be set off into the wild to socialize, to breed, to live an amazing life, do whatever you want, and then you're going to die. it's a no-brainer, man.
Yeah,
Like, you know
and
what I
many
mean?
times they'll live longer too. I mean, what's an animal that we raise as livestock live a year, maybe two,
Yeah,
max, but usually 6 months. So, they also have longer lives as well, much more fulfilling. And when I think about that diet, that modern industrialized diet, I've kind of joked in the past, like if you imagined like those orcs and goblins out of Lord of the Rings, and you were like, what would they eat? It'd be like animals, malnourished animals tortured in cages. Like it's
yeah,
like a demonic diet, like
totally,
food
man.
devoid of life, and all that it's got is pain and artificiality. It's such like a demonic way to eat. And I don't think the vegetarians or vegans get much exception here, because they are doing like, if you really believe that life is life, then I don't like, so we talked about speciesism. I also don't like kingdomism, where it's like, well, plants are not conscious and animals are conscious. It's like, man, you spend time studying plants and you realize these are older organisms. They've been on the
Mm.
planet a lot longer. I like to think of them as very refined, not primitive. And raising corn in a factory setting is not any better than raising animals in a factory setting. And a lot of animals die to raise all that corn, and that's habitat. So to me,
Absolutely.
whether I'm foraging or I'm hunting, to me, I'm going after species that have had good free lives. And I really like that. And also I think they do get to live, typically longer too. So yeah, I really
They
agree
do.
with that.
Yeah, and the other point is the cortisol. I don't know if you know much about cortisol, but um,
It's
it's
stress chemical. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
yeah, cortisol is a serious stress chemical that taints meat. And there's a lot of bad health problems that come with having cortisol in your system, right? Like, it creates a lot of disease. There's a lot of bad stuff that comes with cortisol, and animals in captivity that are slaughtered for the purposes of eating are absolutely riddled with it. Like, the highest levels of cortisol are found in farmed animals that are treated badly, especially the huge producers of them, because logistically they can't afford to have one pig in a big pen. They have to put like 15, 20 of them in a small area. That's stress. That's stress. It's like when they go to get slaughtered, man, they know they're about to get killed. So there's another huge boost of cortisol before they're being harvested. That cortisol is in that meat that we're
Yeah.
eating. So
Yeah.
whereas an animal and I don't mean to be preachy, like I'm not saying, oh, you've got to go out hunting, but these are just facts that people should know. And it's like, you shoot a hog in the wilderness and it's sitting there eating grass, and then boom, you've killed it in 5 seconds. That animal had no idea what was going on. It died very happy. So, it's like a matter of, A, health, and B, ethics, I think is the main two things.
And then I think another layer of this that we've kind of were touching on earlier that's really important is, for the eater, there's a story with the food, whether you
Yes.
harvested it yourself and you know the story, or you're sharing it with somebody and you know the story. Because I also I note that in addition to the fact that we were saying before, you go to those nice restaurants and you got all these foraged and hunted or game ingredients, I should say, and wild caught
Yeah.
fish, you also get these wines that come out with this huge regional story where they tell you all about the place and the soil and the sun direction and the minerality of the place, and that story increases the perceived value to the consumer so much. And so when we sitting down to a burger that you would frankly wouldn't want to hear the story of, versus
Yeah.
sitting down to some meat where I can tell you a bit about this animal, I mean,
Yeah.
that adds so much, where like it causes a person to take a pause and a breath and appreciate and to taste. Like if I give you a sip of, if I hand you a glass of wine, you could sip it while talking and we might not ever even really notice the wine. But if I hand you that same glass of wine and I start to tell you about that region, I start to tell you
Yeah.
about the soil, the history of the vineyard, now when you taste it, you're actually going to stop and you're going to be with that wine and you're going to start to notice those flavor notes. And all of a sudden, all of the not just the values increase, but that story adds meaning to your life. And so I think one of the sad things is to see people eating with no story to what they're eating. And I think when people are talking about, we got to go colonize Mars and and spread out into the stars and all the stuff they're talking about, it's like, I worry about humanity losing all the story of what, just living on freeze-dried astronaut food. Like, this makes no sense. Like, how important nutritionally is the story, psychologically anyway? I think it's a much bigger part than people want to admit.
100%, man. I couldn't have said it better. It's all about the story. It's all about the background. It's how it got there, and it's why we're doing it. And I think, now you just said that so perfectly. And that's another thing that you get when you harvest your own food. It becomes an amazing meal on the plate that you share with loved ones, and that's awesome. But there's a huge story behind how that came about. You know what I mean? And I feel like even with our shows, it's exactly that. We're showing the story and the adventure and the how it all played out, and that's so rewarding. Like, how rewarding is that? Mm-hmm. It's like, this isn't just a meal, man. This is a story. This is a really unique and exciting story that I've presented to you in the form of a plate of food. That's amazing. I think that's something that stays with you for the rest of your life, really. Like, I can remember adventures and stuff that I've had that, are still with me as like, I mean, I can remember stuff from when I was like 6 years old. I can clearly remember like certain, adventures that I've had that I'll never forget. And I think that's something that everyone in their life should definitely experience, and you're 100% right about the wine thing. It's like, when you start being told about who the grower is, like, oh, this is a small family from Italy, and they harvest the grapes like this and that. All of a sudden, you're right. You're like, oh my God, this is like amazing.
Yeah, so, I should take some time to appreciate it. That's what I love about hunters is hunters love to tell stories, and you get
sometimes they're not all true, right?
Yeah, exactly. And anglers, it gets a lot worse, right?
Yeah, I saw a really funny thing. It was like, sorry to interrupt, but it said,
no, please.
It said hunters welcome, fishermen welcome, and liars welcome. I was like,
exactly. But I do think that there's something about. Well, I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying before, that this thing of hunting, it's not new. It's very, very ancient. And storytelling is also very, very ancient. Now, maybe we've replaced, the stories we've told with movies and books, and maybe we replaced the stories we told about the stars in the sky with the stars from Hollywood. And, things have gotten a little, out of shape and knocked around a little bit. But ultimately, this is who we are. We hunt. And we tell stories about the hunt. And I really appreciate, and then we share that meal together. I appreciate that you're bringing that back. And while we were talking before about how not everybody into hunting needs to be, big into fitness, like that's kind of a subculture. But one thing I see that's becoming more universal is that the food component of hunting is being popularized again. And I don't mean to give the impression it ever went away, but it certainly wasn't the big focus for a while. It seems like, at least here in the States, hunting and the food part had gotten kind of a little far apart. Like they had sort of diverged a bit. And now there's this big push for the hunter to, be a cook again as well, maybe even a chef again. And that to me is exciting. And I just want to say, I really appreciate what you're bringing to Outdoor Channel, what you're bringing with the show, the ethic that you have with it. It's just, I'm very excited to, have you as a colleague and, a friend. And I'm excited to get out in the field with you one day.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Daniel. I mean, look, man, there's a saying, birds of a feather flock together. So, I feel like you're in the same space, and, I would love to do something with you one day, man. I think the more, people like us can collaborate and stick together and spread this message, the better it is for everyone. And people are interested in it. Like you said, like, it's not something that people are frowning on anymore, because we're doing it in the right way. And, no matter how you look at it, I can't see a negative thing about it. It's all positive. It's all good for you. It's like, there's it's hard to argue against it, So yeah, it's exciting times. And I really hope that The goal for me, and I think that, a real win is when obviously the hunters and the gatherers out there and the people that have been living sort of a bit off grid, they get this. This has been part of their lives anyway. But what excites me is getting the people that aren't into it. The city folk and the people that once frowned on this stuff now going, oh, wait a minute. These guys have a point. Like, I understand this. This is not, this makes sense. And not only that, I'm actually interested. Like, how do I get into this? That to me is the win. That's yes, man, you finally, like, I'm so happy that you get it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's to me, that's what my ambitions are and goals is to get those people that were once, frowning upon, now getting it.
I think that that's what's really possible here, because right now, like if you just took a snapshot, a moment in time, there's like an antagonism between conservationists and environmentalists. Like they have very different agendas and they look like they're at odds with each other. And then where I think it's headed, though, is that these things we're going to get past. I'm hoping that over this next decade, and it's going to take a little longer, but I think this divisive right-left polarity that we've been like living in, and this like constant, two sides thing to every single art. It's like, I think that we're going to kind of get beyond that. And I think that the environmentalists and the conservationists are going to see each other like, hey, we're allies here. We actually don't disagree, And I think that it's those folks, if we're not careful, we could push those folks away, as you know, but if we do it right, and those folks we can merge with them, it'll secure hunting's place into the future. Because, it's really scary when you see stuff like, I know there was like some referendum recently in Oregon, like to try to ban all hunting and fishing, or it's like, I know that's not going to happen anytime soon, but the idea that that's even on the table, it's like, okay, we need to play this right, because we can't risk this human legacy. And it's so important. But I do think we share most of the same values. And as the environmentalists start to see that we care about the environment as much, and in some cases a lot more. Yep. I think that slowly that we're going to win them over.
We are 100% on the same page. It's just a matter of perspective. Yeah. Like, if you think about it, as a hunter-gatherer, food harvester from the wild, what is it that I want? I want animal numbers to be flourishing. I want ecosystems to be thriving. I want the world to be a clean, green machine, man. That's what I want. Why would I want a desolate, arid, environment that is not supporting life? That completely goes against what I want. I want an abundance of animals and an abundance of nature. And that's what they want. That we all want the same thing. So, it's just about, and the other thing is, a lot of the time where the disconnect is they don't realize how much we actually understand about these environments. We're immersed in it, but like, they don't get it. I think we're just like out there shooting shit. It's like, wait a minute, man. Right. We get this environment probably more than you do, because we're out there.
Introduce you to it.
You know what I mean? Like, let me just explain a few things about what we do. And it's like, and I tried to tell that story in my show a bit, like just little things like, there's a deer. I'm not going to shoot that deer because that deer isn't mature yet. It hasn't done its breeding. It hasn't spread its genetics. It's not ready to be harvested. I'm going to let that thing go. I'm going to let it do its thing, so there's more in the future. When I see a big old mature buck that I know, regardless, that thing's going to be dying in 2 years from now, regardless, whether I take it now or I don't, it's finished its breeding. It's done its thing. You know what I mean? Like, so to let it go and die naturally and rot in the ground, that to me is a waste. But knowing
ripped apart by something,
you know what I mean? It's going to be eaten. It's probably going to be eaten by an invasive species that's been put here by man in the wrong way. You know what I mean? That's probably what's going to happen. So, like, harvesting an animal like that is a smart way of going about it. And anyone that's into wildlife conservation and is not a hunter should be able to understand, and that is okay. And in fact, that's the right thing to do. The other example I'll give is invasive animals that have been put here by man to counteract something else. And that happens a lot with all sorts of rodents and rabbits and all sorts of stuff. Like, those animals there should be absolutely no reason why you can't shoot all of them, because they're not meant to be in that system. They're actually causing harm. Like, they're actually, making natural ecosystems less valuable. So those instances, who's the one that's helping get rid of them? It's hunters. Like, without us, all they're going to do is keep breeding and killing off the native animals that are supposed to be there. So, these are all things that we're all on the same side about. And I think, once we can let go of the ego and the bravado and, my point's more stronger than your point. No, you're wrong, I'm right. Once we let go of that and we all start having great conversations about what we care about, that's the moment where, we're going to really elevate conservation.
Yeah, and I think food's the way that's going to happen, because that's what, anybody who's not thinking about food now is going to be over these next few years. I mean, it's going to get more expensive. The quality is going to keep going down. Before you know it, people are going to be eating 3D printed food. It's going to be food. You know what I mean? Food's our way. That's how we're going to tell the story.
It's getting that way, right? Like, I've said this, I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to comment too much, but I've seen this fake meat now that's coming out.
I know,
and I'm
it's so brutal.
What the F, man? Seriously, like, what? You're literally promoting fake food. Like, what's the next step? We're going to be eating pills to get our nutrition?
Yeah, right. Friend Paul Saladino had a thing on his Instagram account recently, and it was the ingredients for Impossible Burger, the ingredients for I forget the other one. There's two of them there, and then the ingredients on beef. And with beef, it's just like beef. And with these other things, it looks like. And he also did a comparison of a bag of dog food and those products, and the ingredients are quite similar. I mean, it's basically like kibble, and so it is funny because these things get promoted as green and healthy, and it's like, this is the most processed food you've ever eaten. How can we promote this as being nutritionally sound?
Yeah. No, I get it, man. Well, why would you even want to eat fake meat? Like, if you're a vegetarian, just be a vegetarian. Man. Like, just eat vegetables.
Exactly.
Like, why would you want to, like, why are you bothering with, like, fake tasting meat? Like, it's crazy. But, well,
it does kind of illustrate that people want to eat meat. I think that's kind of what it says. And so it's like, hey, this is a natural desire for us. There's a reason that when you look around the world at pre-agricultural hunter-gatherer peoples, and you ask them what's the most important food to them, it's like meat. It's always meat,
Of course, man. I mean, we all need it. I think, I get that, I don't think eating anything excessively is good for you. Like, I actually do agree with, and that's coming from me now, right, that eating too much meat is probably bad for you. I do agree with that. I'm all about the science behind it. But I also agree with not eating it is probably not good for you either. Right. So it's like, you can balance it, man. There's no reason why you can't eat meat 2 or 3 days a week and eat fish 2 or 3 days a week. And then if you want, have a day where you just eat vegetables. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me to say that, meat is bad for you, I don't agree with that at all, man. Like, 90% of the animals on the planet, well, I don't know, I just made that figure up, but a lot of animals on the planet eat each other and eat other things, So it's like, why would be the only thing that says, that it's bad for you? It's crazy.
Well, it's also like, the idea, like, you'll hear meat causes cancer, and it's like, well, when did that start? Because we've been eating meat since as far back as our archaeological record goes. When did this suddenly begin? Because it hasn't been doing that all along. So that wasn't an issue until recently. So it doesn't make sense.
Exactly, man. I mean, I don't see too many animals walking around with the diseases that we have, like, I've never seen an obese animal in my life, or an animal. How many animals on the planet have diabetes? Like, hello, it's like, I know it's the crap that we're eating, man.
Yeah, it's really funny, man. Tell us, so your show's coming out, I think, on the 20th of September. Is that right?
Yeah, my show launches 20th of September, 7:30 p.m. on the Outdoor Channel. And yeah, man, I'm so excited. I think I'm in the same block as you. It's the
Yeah.
wild
Taste
Taste
of
of
the
the
Wild or
Wild.
something? Yeah, cool, man. Well,
Yeah.
I'm pumped about that, and I'm wishing you really good luck on your second season as you get out there and do the work. But excited. How many episodes in the first season?
There's 8 in the first season. I kind of shoot regionally. That's the whole plan with Man Eats Wild. And hopefully we're going to do like 10 seasons, hopefully. So, the whole idea is that every season is a different part of the world.
Oh,
And
cool.
we try to highlight the best of each region. So the first one obviously was close to home for me. I did Australia and New Zealand and the South Pacific. And then this next one will be, that African region. Then I'll start touching into America, North America, because, predominantly that's my audience and they want to see stuff at home. And I mean, to be honest with you, Daniel, I haven't done much hunting in the States, man. I haven't done
Oh,
much.
cool.
So I'm excited to see what it's all about here. And it's, again, going back to that thing I said, it's a new environment. It's new.
Yeah.
It's all different. Like, I've hunted some of the same animals that we have back home. Like, I've hunted elk before, which is, man, mind blowing. I can see how people get addicted to just, specifically hunting elk.
Right.
But
Specializing on that.
oh man, it gives me goosebumps thinking about elk in the rut. But yeah, I've done a little bit of hunting. Like, I was up in your neck of the woods. I think I was telling you when we had a chat the other day about I shot a moose up in Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. And so, yeah, man, it's exciting. I can't wait. The only thing that's a bit foreign to me is how you guys have tags and you've got to apply for everything, which
Yeah.
to me is frustrating. But at the same time, it's amazing that you guys put so much effort and you have the right authorities to manage populations, because really that's what it's about, right?
Yeah, we do have a really amazing management system here. And one of the things that's cool about it here, I think, is that it's accessible to everybody. So it's like, I often hear folks telling me about like the challenges of hunting in the UK, for instance. It's quite classist, and it's very difficult to get access, and those kind of things can happen. And here, I just love how equal opportunity it is. But yeah, and there's a lot, or like here in Maine, you can hunt bear over the counter. No tag. You need a tag, but it's not a lottery.
Right.
But yeah, some of those animals with lower numbers, like you said, it's lottery based. But I'm excited to see what you do over here. There's so much opportunity, and our fisheries are fantastic as well. So I think you're gonna have a great time here. But I'm excited to see what you do in Africa, because to me that's what's so foreign, and. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that. And I cannot wait. Personally, I've got a pretty good following out in Australia and get invited out there all the time. So I think at some point I'm going to go out that way to do a season of my show, and I'll be calling upon you for some input and advice,
Oh man, and even if you want, I'll take you out there. I've got some
I'd love that.
in the Northern Territory, especially, man. I've got some crazy locations that you'll be blown away. That's actually
Cool.
that's actually one of my favorite spots in the world, man. That place is, you want to talk about untouched. That place is completely untouched. Like, there's places that I'll take you if that happens is where I don't even know if man has stepped there. Like, certainly not Western man. It's like completely untouched.
Wow. Well, I guess, for folks who don't have cable, I was always telling people about Friendly TV. They stream Outdoor Channel live as it's on the air. So if you don't have Outdoor Channel and you want to see Man Eats Wild on the 20th at 7:30, you don't have cable, go to frndlytv.com and you can stream there. And they've got a free subscription that you can get. So that's one way to see the show. And I'll be tuning in, man. And in the meantime, where do people go if they want to find your work? I know your Instagram account's pretty active.
Yeah, my Instagram account is I mean, it's funny, man, because I've been spending so much time out in the wild and doing my thing. I haven't really been a social media guy, and everyone behind me now is like, you have to do this, man, because people need to see what you're doing. So I started an Instagram up about a year ago, and it's been going really well. But if you guys want to follow it, I'd really appreciate it, and you can keep up to date with my new African safaris and all my food adventures. It's Man Eats Wild TV. And yeah, give us a follow. But I think there's a few platforms the Outdoor Channel is playing through. I think Hulu might be one of them, and YouTube TV. But for the most part, if you've got the channel, tune in, man. We're on it on September 20th at 7:30.
Well, thanks so much for your time today, Mario. I'm really looking forward to getting to connect in person over a meal or a hunt or whatever it is. So, yeah, appreciate it.
For sure, Daniel. I can't wait. We've got to do that. As soon as I get back, man, let's make it happen.
Thanks for listening to the WildFed podcast. You can help us grow this show by subscribing and leaving us a rating and review. It ensures better rankings and more advertiser interest, which translates directly into better shows, more awesome guests, and a constant stream of fresh, new content. Have a question you'd like answered on the show, or a hunting, fishing, or foraging trip you'd like to host us on? Email us at info@wild-fed.com. And be sure to visit our website, wild-fed.com, to check out the WildFed video show and store. WildFed. Food is all around you.